I always felt a charge when you and I were close.
Next, we try to understand what's Joan's take about poetry and music.
Basically, we try to figure out if she perceives music as just a quicker way to deliver poetry.
Or if poetry itself is just a completely different business.
Just to get right off the bat, I really love poetry, and I think poets are so royalty in a lot of ways. The fact that making a living doing that is it's probably the hardest way to make a living. I also got to hand it to them for that. But for me, music is something that has its own poetic language separate from words, you know. The fact that you put a couple of notes together, and depending which notes they are, you feel a different way, is will, I think, forever be fascinating for me. Before you ever put words over it, and then you can, you know, if the sound makes you sad, if you put a happy word over it, then you have that rub. Or if you know, you can just, it's like, you know, you can just really work with the coloring of everything. But because I played music only without words for so long, you know, the whole sort of palette of music and how it makes you feel at different times and stuff is its own intangible language.
Next one is a question that we always ask. That's because we're kind of curious about it, and it's kind of relevant to know what's their take about it, isn't it?
It is, and the point is to understand how important it is to Joan if the public receive what she puts out there in the same way as she meant it to, and if it ever happened to her to feel misinterpreted.
That's absolutely happened to me in both ways. And I've really had to sort of learn how to make sense of that for myself. Certainly after you've released your music, it is not yours anymore. And what happens, I mean, that is why I love music, because it really does mean something different to every person. I've had my songs interpreted any different number of ways, and I think that they're all equally as valid. Whatever I thought, you know, it meant, is just what I thought it meant. You know, after it's in the world, it's like when you know, your child leaves home. That's not, you know, you don't own your child. You made it, and then it's its own living beast that can do whatever it wants.
We have read that it was the idea of something endless that gave birth to the title of the album, and that somehow it turned out to be the most open and joyous record of Joan's.
So maybe it's fair to assume that the concept of this big universe and feeling so tiny compared to it doesn't scare her.
I think it's endlessly fascinating, our obsession with knowledge. But I know that I'm a lot happier knowing that I will never understand a lot of things. That the unknown is a permanent thing in my life, and that and when I can really remember that we are so tiny, and so tiny in the scope of the world, but it's so tiny in the scope of the universe, and in the whole time frame of everything. People, I find, are constantly talking about how bad it is right now, and I think it's kind of crazy, because we only have the amount of time we have here, which is so small in light of the world.
After chatting for a while with Joan, it's obvious that she tends to embrace change and seems to have a lot of appreciation and a good disposition towards development and learning.
But what is it like for her to just look back at her old self, and is she an unforgiving judge or a sympathetic friend?
Well, isn't that a good question? Yes. I lived for a very long time being an unsympathetic judge. And I could give so much love out to other people. And I rarely gave it to myself. And you can really only go so far that way. I hit a wall where I did become so tired of not treating myself the way I treated others. To the point where I forced myself to be kinder to myself. And it was really interesting because when I made a conscious effort to do it, it felt creepy, almost. I was, to the point where I was like, what? That is horrible. I had convinced myself somewhere that if I wasn't mean to myself all the time, I wouldn't get anything done. You can only live like that for so long without just having that breakdown. I try every day to be kind to myself. It doesn't feel as creepy, but it doesn't necessarily always feel natural still. I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to it. I do definitely see that when I can give myself love, I attract people that also are that way themselves and are just healthier and more lovely to be around. So, obviously I want that.
Joan is such a magnificent human being. It was just a pleasure and a privilege to spend some time with her.
And now we really look forward to her album, The Deep Field, which is coming out in January, and then her UK tour in February, where hopefully we will be able to catch up with her again.
And in the meantime, stay tuned to Joan and Teacups because we have so many more sessions coming up soon. Till then,
Bye!
Bye!